Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me Anh Lam. On first of all, hope I pronounced your name right. Second of all, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tom, and you absolutely nailed my name.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about your academic and professional background?
Yes, absolutely. So I started my journey, born and raised in Vietnam. I came here for college, started out at Northern Virginia Community College for my associate degree, then transferred to complete my bachelor degree at the American University in DC area with business administrations and specializations in finance. Um, and I always wanted that know that I want to be into wealth management, and it's more so a little bit close to the heart and personal reason is my dad lost money for misleading investment growing up, and being in a third world country and developing country, there's not lack of regulations, you might call it. So I always set out the goal to be in the field that I can protect the investor hard-earned money. So that's the beginning of my journey.
So, how did your journey put you in the chair, as we say, into compliance?
It's put me into the chair. How does one? That's a great question. I think it all just started out with I was an intern at this small boutique firm in DC area, and I tried to make myself as valuable and irreplaceable as I could possibly. So I asked for all the tasks, and I remember my first task started out with me scanning statement to find cost basis, and you wouldn't believe that ExxonMobil in 1970s was $1.79 and now is at $108. Started out with finding cost basis, and my former boss introduced me to compliance task, and he asked me start to do reconciliating management fees. Is this fees correctly for the letter of agreements and things in that regard? And I picked up a lot more along the way, figured out, 13F report. But I'm a type of person that in order to do my job well, and I need to understand what I'm looking for and what I'm doing. So he introduced me to, and I asked him to invest me in education for compliance because I need to, in order to be good at it, you need to know what it is. So he invested me into pursuing the IACCP designation with NRS Now Comply. And that's how I picked up on learning what is fiduciary, what is the Investment Advisor Act. And the more I learn about it, the more interest I develop in compliance. And I enjoy doing what I'm doing and know exactly what I'm looking for. That's how I started out in the compliance. And then I keep and my motto is never stop learning. So I keep acquiring different designations. So the CSCP, which is provide me a background in broker dealer side. And at that point, one last piece to why I decided to be in compliance is the SEC exam at my previous firm. That's at that point I understand that compliance is more than just checking boxes. It's actually being proactively protecting the client best interests at heart, which started out with my value when I set it out earlier is goal is to protect the investor hard-earned money. So that's how my journey in compliance started.
What's your current role?
My current role is the Chief Compliance Officer for Sandy Spring Bank's Wealth Divisions. I oversee two RIA, West Financial Services, and Rembert Pendleton Jackson's.
Could you give us a sense of your two or three either top compliance challenges or projects you really are proud of that you have done as a CCO?
Absolutely. There's three top challenges come to mind. One to me is rewriting the narratives of Chief Compliance Officer. Oftentimes, when people hear the word compliance, kind of roll their eyes, the person who always saying no. I want to rewrite that narratives. I want it to be different. My point of view as chief compliance officer being there so that my coworker, my staff can come to me with any question they have without hesitations, which at the beginning of my job at Sandy Spring Bank in 2020 was difficult. It was during the peak of the pandemic. Everybody worked remotely. You can't really see them. You can't read their body language, seeing their facial expressions and tone. So communication was a challenge, but I overcome that by making myself, and now to this day being called queen of video call. I would just put myself to all this call, turn on my video so that people normalize the process. People can see me and talk to me and see me outside of just a chief compliance officer. That I am also a human being that have a personal side of it. They can talk to me whether about golf or football or anything that they come to mind. So that's how I overcome the first challenge and become their build up that rapport and credibility with my staff. So that's the first challenge, to rewrite it narrative. It takes time, but it's doable. The second challenge is our evolutions of changing rules and regulations. You know, as a chief compliant officer, there's a pressure of reducing costs while meeting regulatory deadline. And somehow along the way, we also become an expert in fields that we're not trained to be experts in. Cybersecurity, now we need to learn how to read SOX report, know how to do or at least read the penetration test. What is cryptocurrency? What is non-fungible tokens? All of that, artificial intelligence. In addition to what is already fully plate that we have a chief compliant officer. So for me, in order to narrow that gap and make myself more familiarized with these forever changing world, new things coming up every day, is at least to listen to as much podcast as possible. To keep up with AI, I listen to Hard Fork or listen to the Daily New or the Wall Street Journal to just knowing what is to start my day and keep up with what the news of that day is. So that's the second challenge. We have to keep ourselves open to learning even more to keep up with this regulatory landscape. And the last challenge I think is kind of unique to me is because I'm the chief compliant officer for two separate registered investment advisor, means I do everything twice. It just because there is two set of policy and procedure that I have to meet for each firm requirements, culture, and needs. One firm would have custody audit, and the other one would have solicitation, which is sound like a lot, but ultimately it keep me sharp. One, I need to remember which employee of which firm I talk to at all time, to remember what the problem is. The other part of it is it's helped me push me to think more creatively of solutions and focusing on improving the efficiency and effectiveness of policy and procedures that could apply to both firms, but also make them different from each other. So those are the three challenges that I have, and a little bit solution how I cope and improve and kind of deal with these challenges along the way.
Let me ask you to maybe turn your head to the left and look down the road a little bit to 2030 and maybe even beyond. Where do you see the CCO role in your business or your industry at that point going forward?
Um, I think that in 2030, I think compliance is here to stay. I don't think compliance will go anywhere. However, it will have to go with technology and artificial intelligence. The AI and technology will help make our job more efficient and effectively and automate it, save time. However, as of right now, AI can help so much that but it still require human to human interaction, because the AI can point out the mistake and the outliers, but it cannot communicate effectively to why this error happened and how we prevent it. So maybe by 2030, each firm would have their own internal AI system, integrate different platform from Tamarack to ChargeSwap, so then the compliant world's regulation could change more effectively. So that's the first part is AI. The other is we might see as the market allows more foreign investor around the world. You can invest in China internationally. Maybe the world of compliance regulatory will become more standardized, and we already see that GDPR. It all started out with Europe in 2018, and is considered as a de facto starter of privacy regulations, right? And now we have California, we have Massachusetts. Each state has their own privacy, but ultimately is the same as to protect consumer privacy. So that's where I see our regulation heading that way in 2030 and beyond.
Unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but if our listeners wanted to connect with you or had any questions, what might be the best way for them to do so?
Absolutely. I think LinkedIn would be the best way to get in touch and keep up with one another.
I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. I really appreciate it.